Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Field Advisor, the podcast recording today. I'm Kelsey Litchfield here with Kyle Stull. He's the owner of Stull Agronomy, and he's a crop consultant based out of Wisconsin. Kyle, I was, doing some research, looking you up, and I saw you have a podcast called The Rogue Agronomist. It looked like you hadn't posted in a while, but I'm curious, where did the Rogue Agronomist title come from?
So when I left ag retail, I was looking at starting my own podcast, and I I quit retail to farm full time, and then I took on a Pioneer seed dealership, and um, so I went rogue, and then I was like, well, that makes sense, and I'll call myself the Rogue Agronomist, and it's kind of a play on words. Rogue One was a Star Wars movie, so I'll call my truck Rogue Deuce, and a weed that or a corn plant that's not supposed to be in a seed corn field because I grew up or started in seed corn production. That's a rogue. So I was like, it has kind of a big play. The funny thing was, I remember telling my Pioneer DSM about it, and she goes, "Have you been telling everybody about this?" I said, "No, you're the first person from Pioneer I told that I want to call it the Rogue Agronomist." She goes, "Literally, there are a couple other Pioneer dealers that are just calling you a Rogue Agronomist." I'm like, perfect.
Did you
It's gonna
like
work
that?
out. I whatever. That was, I don't know. I used to really hate criticism, and now it's just kind of gotten to the point where I just kind of live with it. That's the way it is. But
Well, let's talk about that because you're on TikTok. You just told me you post about 3 to 4 videos a day. Stole Agronomy, if you want to look them up on TikTok. I had told Kyle before I started recording, he had me download TikTok. I haven't been on it since last year because I wanted to watch his videos. But why TikTok? You had the podcast, now you're on TikTok. What's your whole strategy here as a crop consultant?
not really a strategy, more of just like I enjoy social media. So I think I started out on Twitter in like 2010. So now X, but I started out talking to just other people on that platform, and then I like the podcast idea. I didn't really like the idea of being on video all the time, which now is kind of foreign to me because that's what I do all the time. Um, I don't know. I just started a TikTok, just started doing videos, and it just kind of took off. So I don't know. I think everybody kind of tries to struggle to find that platform that works for them, and TikTok seemed to be the one. Um, I don't know. You'll find sitting behind a microphone with no video on, talking to yourself for 15, 20 minutes is kind of weird. So it's a lot easier to do it on video for whatever reason.
And you've stuck with TikTok even though it's had so many challenges within the past year in terms of ownership. I mean, I've been in communications a long time, and I've told people don't put all your eggs in one basket if you want to be on social media and making a business out of it.
Yeah, and I'm not really, I mean, to me, TikTok has never been about getting paid a bunch of money or I mean, I think I put out a podcast episode a couple of years ago talking about I don't want to be an influencer. It's not what I want to set out to be. One, I can't be because if I'm an independent consultant, I can't take on a bunch of sponsorships and go on trips and get paid for that kind of content. And that's about the only way I think you make enough money on any kind of social media to make it worthwhile is to be sponsored by people. And I can't be that way. So to me, I got kind of stuck up in the algorithm at one point on TikTok. You start making a little bit of money or you get monetized and you're like, oh, this is great. How do I make this work? And then after a while, I just kind of said, you know what, I'm just going to make the content I want. If people don't enjoy it, that's fine. I'm just going to do me, be myself. And that it makes me feel a lot better than when I was worried about the algorithm and trying to get paid more per video and view counts. And
Mm-hmm. How do you get your ideas for your videos? It's just based off what people are asking you.
so we have an all employee meeting every morning. So there's only one of me. So it's really easy. No, I don't know. I mean, anybody in agriculture, especially most of us, we kind of work alone most of the time. So you kind of just, when you, I saw a video once where a guy said, you start doing 3 to 4 videos a day. And he said, just push yourself to do it. And eventually it just becomes natural. And it's kind of gotten to that point where I don't even really need to think about it. It just kind of goes, oh, that's a video idea. And I'm working on something else. I'm like, oh, that's a video idea. And you just hit record right away. And that makes it a lot easier than like the podcast where I have to be in my office in front of a microphone. So it's just been more real for me, a lot easier.
To be honest, you do it in one take and done?
I will say if there's any time that I stop and try to record something, it's the intro. That is the only thing I ever re-record typically. Or if I say, like this morning I was talking about, there was a NFL player that committed or died by suicide this last week. So I have to be careful with my TikTok words, but now I don't have to because I'm on podcast. But because I can't say suicide and yeah. But anyway, Rondale Moore, Purdue football player in the NFL, like he's getting hurt. He died by suicide this weekend. And I wanted to do a video this morning and I said he unalived himself. And I went, I can't say it that way. I have to like say it the right way. And yeah, that's about the only time that I'll re-record something. But everything's pretty much one take. You don't ever see me cutting or doing anything like that. I think it's more natural, more me that way anyway.
Yeah. So one of the videos you posted on February 4th, if you allow me, I'll read the caption to you, see if it sparks why you did it, and we can talk about it more. So the caption of the video read, quote, "If everything that you wanted was free or cheap, there'd be no creativity and innovation. Fear of missing out and social media marketing might be driving you to make poor decisions." End quote. So here on the Field Advisor podcast, Kyle, I really take Field Advisor to heart and having people say their experiences or lead farmers to make good decisions out in the field. So what did you mean by that TikTok video?
Well, so I want to say like 3 years ago, Pivot Bio was out and everybody just tons of marketing. And it's not saying that Pivot Bio is a terrible company or anything like that, but it was all influencers getting paid to promote it. There's a lot of people pushing it. And you start seeing trends like that. Once you start seeing one of those kind of play through where it's the brand new thing, it's really big, everybody's trying it. And now you're starting to see that in other businesses potentially or other products or other things. And you start seeing that fear of missing out thing kind of start to happen where guys are like, well, if these people are saying they're having success, I got to try it. We saw that with a couple other products this last year. And when we look back and look at the data and how things work, and you're like, well, this product can work, but it only works in certain situations or certain environments. I'm not specifically talking about Pivot Bio. We're talking about anything. That really kind of makes you think, all right, we got to dial this back. We got to do some independent trials, do our own stuff. I mean, there are people that literally are looking at products right now, and our environment's really scary to me because we've got so much doubt, and then we also have so much potential for loss this year that people are looking for that Hail Mary or that miracle product. They're looking to change up literally everything on their farm to try to save money and get to the next year almost. And that can be putting all your faith in something when times are tough. It's really scary to see guys kind of go through that because it could be a Hail Mary that, heaven forbid, Aaron Rodgers isn't throwing that pass. I'm not a Packers fan, but if there was somebody I wanted to throw a Hail Mary pass, I want it to be Aaron Rodgers. But there's going to be other people that won't be able to get that to the end zone. So,
have you seen personally farmers and those that you consult with that this has happened to them?
I wouldn't say the people that I consult with because typically we kind of take more of a systems approach to it. We walk before we run with a lot of products. We just kind of evaluate it on our own, and we look at alternative sources of information about some of these products. So the thing that I struggle with social media with a lot of content is you get all the sales information, all the sales push. You might have somebody that tries a product, but there's that FCC thing where they're supposed to say, if they're sponsored by somebody or they're getting free product, whatever it is. But sometimes that doesn't happen a lot on social media. So you get a lot of people telling you it works, it works, it works, it works. And it's really easy just to kind of follow the crowd a little bit on some of these things. You want to put your trust in somebody that's a farmer that's on the internet telling you that it works, and they might be getting free product or sponsored trips or whatever it is, or some of these guys get paid cash. It's just.
Well, yeah, because word of mouth marketing is the best marketing you can get, but at the same time, is it organic or is it not?
Yeah, I remember a study was several years ago where moms said that they trust other moms more than they trust their doctor. And I think it's just kind of the same thing. We want to trust other farmers or other people we see that we think we can respect. And it doesn't mean that they're bad farmers or they're bad people. It just means that that message might be coming through someone else that you feel you can trust them because you've seen them driving through a field with their dog in the passenger seat or whatever it is. But marketing's definitely changed in the last 4 or 5 years. I think TikTok kind of ushered that on. Maybe it started with Facebook and YouTube, but TikTok's definitely really advanced that quite a bit. What we see on the internet actually promoting stuff that seems to be more what people kind of go towards.
Seems like it's constant exposure, whether as 10, 20 years ago, you'd get the magazine in the mail, you'd read an ad, or, maybe watch it on television once a week during a commercial, during your favorite farm programming. But now with social media, like I said, you're receiving constant exposure. Do you think that's what's starting to shape growers and what they perceive as being valuable or worth trying?
Yeah, I think, we've gone from long platform things. So we're watching a TV show and we see 3 minutes of commercials or probably more like 6 minutes of commercials over a 30-minute period to now we could literally watch a video where it's literally an entire commercial and you get minute long, 3 minute long videos and you're watching 15, 20 of them an hour and they're basically almost all commercials. It's funny that you see people complain about the TikTok shop advertisements where people are promoting a product and then they'll watch the next video where there's a guy talking about a product, but he's standing out in a field and he's, not the salesperson for the product, but he might be getting paid to sell that product. He's not directly selling it, he's just promoting. And so I think things are kind of different. We've mixed marketing with entertainment a little bit more.
And the marketplace is more heavily online itself too. It's easier, convenience, it's easier to get things.
Yeah, a lot of companies really tend to hire influencers. I've been kind of on both sides of a little bit of that, where I've had companies tell me that we're looking to hire X amount of influencers, and they want this many followers or they want this many likes on something, or they're trying to look and quantify which influencer they want to hire to promote their brand. And it's changed how it used to be. Pioneer used to have Chad Greenway was one of their big talk people or spoke people, and then you had Brock Purdy, and now it's gotten to the point where you got 30 different people on TikTok that are promoting Pioneer brand seed, and some of them are farmers, some of them aren't. But you see a lot of people, and a lot of the times I've noticed this with seed companies, especially, and some other companies as well, but their actual reviews that they post or they'll put underneath a video or on an advertisement, they're all people that are sponsored by that company to promote that product. They might be farmers, they might be influencers, whatever it is, or they're both, but the review is from somebody who's being paid to promote the product, which is really strange to me. It's not just somebody naturally using the product.
Mm-hmm.
So things have changed. I mean, it used to be celebrities and now it's influencing people. So
what do we do about it? What are you advising farmers when they see these kinds of ads or looking at influencers online and the products they're influencing.
Yeah, I mean, I think with anything, and this even goes back pre-influencing days, you should be looking at both sides of an issue. Whether that's politics, whatever it is, I think you should be looking at both sides of the issue and trying to figure out where you land, and then trying to do your own research. And I think it's just easier to feel like it's us versus them kind of thing, and you fall on one side of an issue, and that's where you land. And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, pre-internet, which I hate how old I'm getting, but I remember in college being without smartphones. We would sit in the lunchroom and we'd have arguments, but not we'd have more disagreements than arguments. And you had to know your issue that you were talking about. You had to know the information and form your own opinion and then be able to defend that. We don't have to do that anymore because I can pull out my phone and say, you're wrong. Here's 18 things on Google that says you're wrong. Or what was that song? I can't remember what that song was. You yeah, you had to know, or
Mm-hmm.
else wait until it was on the radio the next time and then hope the DJ said the name of who sang it, or else you wouldn't remember who it was. And things have so changed with the advent of having the internet and be able to search things on your phone. But you also have more power now to be able to search the other side and research some of the stuff before you use it. And that's the other thing I think people have to learn how to use. The scary thing with AI a little bit for me is AI learns from what it finds on Google or anything else. And if you're a company and you put a lot of information on TikTok and a lot of these social media sites and on your website, AI will literally pull from that and say, look, this product works. We have all this information that says it works. But then there's a research summary that's somewhere else that literally proves it doesn't work. But you're not going to pay attention to that. They're pulling from 80 different things that says it
Mm-hmm.
does work. So you just have to be diligent and try to understand how things are. And it just seems like we're constantly chasing something all the time.
So speaking of AI, how could you give examples of how it's been good, maybe as a crop consultant, and then you just kind of listed out the reasons why it could be bad or maybe not credible. Maybe credibility is the right word. But AI, I believe, is here to stay, and it's just going to keep snowballing.
Yeah, I would say a year or two ago, I was like, we should not use this. It's just, this is not good for anybody. But at the same point, I've kind of gotten back around now to where I'm like, I got to learn how to use it. It's here. We're going to have it. So I've started using it more. And the funny thing is, I literally had it the other day, and this isn't like a total knock on AI that I hate it, but I had it go through a spreadsheet. I put a spreadsheet into ChatGPT and I said, can you total up these acres from the spreadsheet and then divide it into, how much an average rate of fertilizer is so that I can make this into an average and put it into another spreadsheet. And after about 10 prompts, I said, you know what, it's going to be easier for me just to do it myself. Because it
how
just couldn't.
how much time did you spend doing that? I'm
About
curious.
15, 20 minutes. And then I went, you know what, I'm done. I'm just going to do it
Yeah.
myself. It wasn't that I was giving it the wrong prompt. I've watched it follow down the rabbit hole the wrong way. And then it just keeps making the mistakes. You almost have to tell it, and I've done it a few times, stop, start completely over, and then use this prompt. And then it finds its way a little bit. But it does help with some of those tasks if you can build it. I've had it build some spreadsheets for me. I've had it do a lot of other things. I can ask it questions and it can give me research summaries. The problem I have with ChatGPT or any AI phone, or for that matter, is that you're going to ask it to summarize information for you. You should be going to the actual summary of the research paper you're reading or you want to look at and read the summary because they pretty much summarize it themselves. Um, but the nice thing with AI is it does pull from a lot of different things. You can ask it to keep looking for things, and it searches a little bit more broad and faster than I can do myself. So that's the nice functions. I'm going to use it to make some scouting reports for me this year. I'm going to use it for a few things. I just don't think you can lean on it for information. It's not impartial. It wants you to believe it is, but it's still pulling from the internet, and
Mm-hmm.
the number of times something is said, it gets really excited about. So
I what comes to mind is trust, but verify. But don't trust it right away. You need to verify first, and then maybe look at it that way.
yeah, thanks, Ronald Reagan. The old
I knew.
Russian proverb: trust but
Okay,
verify.
yeah. So, Kyle, going back real quick to, you know, influencers and testing products, I want you to give us a very practical way of, let's say a farmer sees a product online, they're seeing influencers, or this week at Commodity Classic, people are going to be down there. Businesses are going to be having influencers down there talking on TikTok about being there and look at this, and all that stuff. So, if you were in a farmer's shoes, knowing what we've talked about today, what practical guidance would you give to test a new product or maybe find third-party information? How would you take that information then verify it?
I would say, one, do you even need the products? Sometimes it's something you don't even need, like somebody looking for a product that makes phosphorus more available to your plant. Sometimes there's products that only work under a certain pH environment, or sometimes they work only if you've had a long history of manure and it's just fairly easy for it to get to. So some people wouldn't even be able to use that product and actually see a return on it. But we're told that it goes across the whole farm. But I think that's the first step. Do you need it? The next thing I would do is, if you think that it's something you want to try, um, Greg Souter talked about this. A lot of other people, better agronomists than even me, is try it on 1% of your acres the first year, and make sure you do every other pass across the whole field. Then you advance it to the next round, which might be 10 acres, maybe it's 40. And then the next year, maybe it's half the farm if you can continue to prove that it works. Um, it's kind of working through a step of making sure you're verifying things work on your farm. And then I honestly rail on a lot of my guys, and anybody really for that matter, that even if you tested a product for 2 or 3 years, you should continually be pulling yield information to make sure that it still does work. There's a lot of people who use fungicide in corn. That I'm not saying a fungicide doesn't work, but every year you should be evaluating how much it did work and under what situations did it work. Maybe it was my early plant, it didn't really need that at this timing. Um, but we should be evaluating all the time. There's a lot of companies might sell you a product with 50 different trials. You might have 50 different trials in one field. You might have more information on that product than they're willing to give you, and it's all coming from your own farm. So it's just a matter of sitting down, understanding how things work, and then, Dr. Nelson at Purdue used to always talk about garbage in, garbage out when it comes to yield data. Just make sure you're getting good yield data. There's Op Center, there's FieldView, there's a whole bunch of different programs that you can pull all this yield data in and do all kinds of different research on your own. There's millions of data points on every farm, and there's a lot of guys that just don't use it. They just want it with and without, and you might have with and without across the entire farm. But yeah, it's evaluating when it works and how it works and under what circumstances it works makes a big difference.
And it seems like it's more important than ever because, as you pointed out earlier, the farm economy right now. I mean, I feel like people are getting maybe a little bit more hopeful, but now all this tariff news and who knows what the next month growing season, the markets, what they're going to look like. It's such an up and down ride. So, with that in mind, how are you advising farmers as well?
So I had a guy respond to a video the other day, and he said 2026 is the year of I don't know. And he said, I don't have any clue what's going to happen. Trump might post something on True Social and it changes the whole bean market in one day. Um, China decides to turn some ships around. We have such a fast world market at this point that it can change in literally a moment's notice how you think things are going. And I said, we focus a lot on what we can control. We can control when we're doing tillage. We can control when we're planting, we can control a lot of different things. And then I try to get guys onto this mindset of, I always tell everybody, try to have fun. Otherwise, what's the point? And it doesn't mean that we have to have fun farming, but it means that if you're trying to have some kind of entertainment out of it or trying to find ways to have fun with it, that you kind of get your mindset out of those gutters a little bit too. But marketing is probably the biggest thing that costs farmers the most money. I mean, it's just second guessing everything makes it just incredibly hard to deal with. But yeah, the uncertainty in having a world market makes it really difficult.
Mm-hmm. Kyla, I have a couple other questions I want to ask you besides this topic, but anything else surrounding, social media marketing, your point of, do you even need the product, evaluating, looking at information, research, anything else you want to share?
I mean, I think there's a lot of people that have tried products, or there's going to be, it doesn't mean you can't talk to the company reps. And there are good companies out there that will tell you exactly what you want to know about their products. Seed companies put out tons of information about all their different hybrids. I think it takes a little bit of onus to actually go and understand what those products are. There's a lot of times we buy a hybrid and we plant it first because it's the longest maturity we have, and we're not paying attention to any of the agronomics of it. Maybe it has poor cold germ tests. Maybe it's got some other issues that we need to know about. It's just, it won a yield plot. It's the longest maturity. That's the one we're planting on our best ground first. And I think it's the same thing with these products. It's a lot of good companies that sell products. I mean, I'm not saying that there's every product that you can try on your farm that's not fertilizer, seed, or chemicals is just a terrible product. There's a lot of really good companies, and a lot of them are really willing to help you through this. But you do have to take a little bit of what they say with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, they want you to succeed, because if you don't, they're not going to sell you any more product the next year. So I think a lot of that, we got to get off the, I buy a product because it won a yield thing, or there's a yield champion that's using this product, and that's why I'm using it, because he's got 500 bushel corn, and since he used it, that means I'm going to get 500 bushel corn. I think a lot of the onus is still down to the grower to be able to evaluate how things work. And there's some of us out there that literally don't take any money from anybody else, which honestly, it'd be a lot easier if I did. But it would be nice if I did, but at the same point, I'm not independent, and I can't truly tell you what I think about things.
Ask questions. That seems to be the overarching answer.
Yeah, and I think you just, like I said, there's people that want you to succeed, but you got to be able to ask those questions and ask the right questions.
So speaking of marketing, like we talked about earlier, some of your other TikTok videos, I just want to get some quick hits on to see, maybe, probably not that you changed your mind, but just to expand on a little bit. But
Sure.
corn and soybean acres in 2026. What's the chatter you're hearing on that as we're approaching spring?
So I think in the South, primarily, where you start seeing, it seems like where we're having the largest groups of people complaining or like having issues with profitability this year. It seems like the South, you're talking about Arkansas, we're talking about even the deeper South than that. I've had more comments on that video about I'm growing more soybeans primarily because cash flow issues, or the bank's telling me I have to. I don't know. I think the USDA is a little off. I think where the trade estimate was probably going to be more accurate as far as acres of corn, but I don't know. We really, at this point, we're planting so much corn and soybeans. It's scary. We need to be finding other crops, but there's just no good markets for those either. So that's kind of the struggle that we're stuck in for right now.
Mm-hmm. That's a big problem. Let's talk weather real quick. Drought. I looked up the drought monitor this morning and it's terrible. It's been a while since we've seen something like that. I hear a lot of cattle producers are saying I've been hauling in water. The creek's dry. Um, we haven't been in the fields, but we had a dry harvest in my area last fall. Some people are asking, is 2026 going to be like 2012? And that's a huge question. There's still a lot. There's still a lot. So I'm not trying to be predict anything, but just you experienced 2012. What is there any comparisons? Are there not versus that time and where we're at now?
Definitely no comparisons yet. 2012 was so hot in March that year. I mean, I'm in southeast Wisconsin. It was 80 for 2 weeks in March that year. I had condensation in our seed shed floor. That was just terrible. I had tulips blooming. We were putting siding on my house. I took a week off, and all of a sudden I had to take a break from my vacation to go into work so that we could spread nitrogen on winter wheat. But I just, a lot of people forget about 2012 because they think it was dry all the way going in, and it seems like spring that year, it wasn't overly wet, but it definitely wasn't a drought right away, but it was 80 degrees, so it dried out within like 2 days. You could go right back into the field, which is abnormal for March. But I, I don't know. Last year at this time, we were talking about a drought again. We thought last year was going to be this huge drought. In spring, the rain kept coming. Guys in Iowa would tell you that it was not a drought last year. Um, I don't know. I think our patterns, we kind of follow about a 6-month pattern, and it seems like if you were dry last fall, if it's dry right now, it's probably going to be closer to normal by the time we get into spring. But I don't know. You can ask the Farmers Almanac what they think about it. But I just last year I was posting content where there's a 40% chance it's going to be a really big drought that year last year, and at the end of spring, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's probably not true. So we need
Yeah.
to stop talking about that so early.
Yeah, that's one thing when I talk with Matt Reardon next week, who I've had on the podcast quite a bit, talking about weather. And what I want to talk to him about is where do we currently sit? Because I don't like to sit around and just talk about what might happen. I want to know let's reflect on this past winter, and maybe we could talk about an outlook for spring, but knowing that's going to change too. And as of we're recording this, a huge nor'easter is going through here in the US, and they're getting a wet snow. And I think there's a lot of people who would like, I don't know about 2 feet of snow, but they thought that they wish they could get that moisture here in the Midwest.
Yeah, I don't like those kind of storms in March. Usually it's so wet that ugh, it's not fun.
Well, Kyle, anything else that we didn't cover today that you want to share?
Not really. I mean, it's a constant struggle for me to I got to the point where I've stopped defending, all this my views on different products. I've gotten to the point where I put that behind a paywall, and it's not because I'm trying to get more money, but I'm just tired of defending things all the time. And there's so much information out there. There's so much marketing. I think every day it seems like there's a new company on TikTok promoting a product. It gets kind of overwhelming, and I can understand where farmers come from when they kind of look at social media and anything with advertising. It just gets really overwhelming after a while, and you just kind of get to a point where you're like, yeah, just gonna stop listening to the noise and try to find some reasoning in it.
They can still follow you on TikTok, correct? Because that's how
Yeah.
I found you.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still on TikTok. I keep telling guys I still have TikTok. I'm still posting stuff, but there is some stuff that, there are some opinions that I'm pretty opinionated about. And that's behind a paywall, and that's where it's going to be, it's nice for me. I feel a little bit more comfortable doing that, where I can have some return for it. Plus, also at the same point, I have some, kind of a curtain I can kind of be behind a little bit. So
Maybe the rogue agronomist will make a return podcast-wise.
I have a lot of people asking about that. There's a lot of people asking me about that, but yeah, I am not going to do it on my own. I keep saying if I want to do it, I want to do it with guests because it's really weird now to talk into a microphone for 15 minutes by yourself.
That's why I love interviews. I like to ask questions.
Yeah, it's a lot more of a natural conversation than anything else.
Kyle, thanks for coming on the Field Advisor podcast.
Sure.
Thanks for listening to the Field Advisor podcast. Unbiased, independent agronomy information to keep your farm moving forward. I'm Kelsey Litchfield, your voice from the field. This podcast is funded by the Illinois Soybean Association Checkoff Program. Stay connected with Field Advisor on social media. Follow, like, and share to keep the conversation going. And don't forget to subscribe to the Field Advisor podcast on your favorite podcast platform.